Hello, my friends. Welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. It is Thursday. I'll be hosting a hangout tonight at 8 p.m. East, so look forward to that. Joining me on today's show, my very special guest is David Rothkopf of the Deep State Radio Network and so much more. Had a great conversation with him. If you want to jump to it, it begins at 43 minutes in. But I've got your clips, a great fat clip show, and your headlines, so I will get to that first, but want to just mention a couple of quick things. Like I said, tonight's hangout. Also, I highly recommend you check out the Black Guy Who Tips podcast. Of course, Rod and Karen joined us out in Las Vegas, but our friend Cassie, who produced the entire thing out in Vegas, she sent me a link to their episode that kind of recapped Podjam 3, and boy, was it a fun listen. And if you want a hint as to how they see the stand-up community, they titled this episode, Nice, Sweet People, episode 3251, The Black Guy Who Tips. A link to it, if I can remember, in today's show notes, but I highly recommend you go listen to Nice, Sweet People, because it certainly has a lot to do with us, and that is certainly the case about Rod and Karen. They are so great, and I really enjoyed them, and I hope you will go listen to their podcast and support them. Wanted to mention that. Also, I'm still there. I'm still at Podjam 3 and celebrating it and everyone that joined us in the community. And I'll be putting out some pictures and video of the taping real soon. And I know many of you are kind of still there as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Those of you that didn't go and have no interest in going, you're just here for the podcast. Sorry for wasting your time. I'll get to it. But it's such a great experience. I hope you'll join us at our next live gathering, whenever that is, hopefully in the fall, maybe even at my house. Might have it in New York State in September or October. We'll see. We'll see about it. Tune in. All right, let's get to the news and clips. And remember, I cannot do this without your paid subscription. This is an ad-free show. There are no ads. You don't have to fast forward. You don't have to skip ahead because the only ad is me plugging the subscription for the show. You can get it at Substack or Patreon. And it's as little as $5 or as much as you want. So many of you are very generous and very giving, and that is the only way I can do this daily podcast and be with you here on Earth One each and every day. So patreon.com/Pete Dominic. If you ever want to add or give more, you can Venmo me as well. Just reach out and ask. I'll send you the link. It's also in every day's show notes. All right. That's it. That's the plug. That's how we power the program. And here are the headlines that I've selected for you today, Thursday, the 16th of April, 2026. Yeah, you made it. One of the craziest top stories yesterday is that the stock market has bounced back and hit a record high after a month-long sell-off during the war in Iran. The S&P 500, widely viewed as a barometer of the health of the U.S. markets, rose about 0.8% yesterday, reaching an all-time high. The market confidence comes even as energy prices remain elevated and economists warn of lasting effects from the war in the Middle East. Quote, the market is trading assuming we have seen the worst of the conflict, said one analyst. Well, I reached out to Ritholtz and others to find out more about their reactions to it, and it's just crazy. Also, Pakistani mediators arrived in Iran yesterday in an attempt to salvage peace talks between the U.S. and Iran. Before their ceasefire expires next week, the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt said, we feel good about the prospects of a deal, and then pushed back against reports that President Trump wanted to extend a ceasefire. An Iranian official said there was no timetable for another round of negotiations. The New York Times continues and says the efforts at diplomacy came as Iran threatened to halt all trade in the region in response to the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports in the Persian Gulf. So far, the blockade, which U.S. officials said was being enforced by more than 10,000 soldiers, appears to be, quote, working. That's a quote I put around the New York Times reporting. In related news, Israel is considering a short-term ceasefire in Lebanon. And now on to other news here at home. Major story, a federal jury found that Live Nation, the concert giant that owns Ticketmaster, is operated as a monopoly in violation of federal and state antitrust laws. The very impactful and consequential verdict, which was announced yesterday, could have far-reaching consequences in the music industry. The federal government filed the lawsuit against Live Nation 2 years ago, calling for a breakup of the company. Last month, the Justice Department settled with Live Nation and exited the case, but 34 states continue the trial on their own. Live Nation, which argued that it was simply a successful business, will now face monetary damages, and there's so much more to that story and the consequences about it. I'd love to talk with you about that at the Hangout. If anybody, I know a lot of music people, Maddie C. and many others probably have some thoughts on that, although that's not about album sales or royalties, more about ticket sales. Anyway, something that we definitely need to understand better. I know I do. All right, moving on. I also wanted to mention bishops are defending the Pope after Vice President J.D. Vance suggested that the Pope be a little bit more careful in his remarks about theology. Unbelievable. In Michigan, rain and snowmelt have pushed dams and levees to the limit in northern part of the state, spurring evacuations. I saw videos that I thought were from last winter, but they're from this week. Pretty crazy. I hope our friends in Michigan are doing okay, but let us know if you need anything. Saudi Arabia's sovereign investment fund is on the verge of withdrawing its financial support for their golf league. The Live Golf League is currently at danger of collapsing, it looks like. On Capitol Hill, another effort to assert Congress's war powers amid the U.S. conflict with Iran failed in the Senate yesterday, with Republicans blocking a Democratic measure to rein in Trump's control over the war. The vote was 47-52, largely along party lines, except for the two guys that crossed. Rand Paul supported the motion with every Democrat, but John Fetterman joined all the Republicans in opposing it. And Jim Justice of West Virginia, he didn't vote. Where was Jim Justice on that? Two senior Pakistani officials said the U.S. and Iran will likely meet again next week for a second round of peace talks. I think that's different reporting than I mentioned earlier. And Pakistan will most likely be the venue, they're saying. The U.S. has not formally agreed to extend the ceasefire with Iran, due to expire April 22nd, according to a senior official on MS Now. I thought I did all the Iran stories up front. Oh, I'm disorganized today. Sorry about that. Let's go to Budapest. That's how you say it. Pest. Like SH. I've heard people. Come on. Hungarian Prime Minister-elect Peter Magyar used his landmark appearances on state-controlled media outlets yesterday to reaffirm his intention to suspend their broadcasts as soon as he is sworn in. During an interview on the state-controlled M1 television network, Magyar labeled the broadcaster a factory of lies and promised to immediately suspend the false news service that is operating here. That's crazy. Oh, that's wild. I wish we could do that. I wish we could have somebody that would do that. All right. I think it's a little bit different. But apparently Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, who oversees the family business empire, he's going to accompany the president on his next trip to China. I wonder what that's all about. A lot of people have questions. But imagine if that were Hunter Biden. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett yesterday said that Democrats will move to hold former Attorney General Pam Bondi in contempt for failing to appear for a deposition as part of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee's Jeffrey Epstein probe. That'll be interesting to watch. And I guess Steve Bannon said this is the best possible outcome given the circumstances, but the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which had been set to shut down in May, will keep publishing after all. A nonprofit journalism organization has stepped up to acquire the newspaper, which has survived for more than 2 centuries. And in one of the year's few interesting legislative disputes, the House yesterday overwhelmingly passed a bipartisan aviation safety bill, setting up a showdown with the Senate where leaders have declared that key provisions fall short of what is necessary to prevent aircraft mid-air collisions. But maybe this is government doing something after a tragedy happens to prevent the next one. Maybe all those lives lost won't be entirely in vain or for nothing, or potentially prevent future lives lost. And finally today, a vast new study has found that natural selection is still causing humans to evolve. Well, some of us. But researchers hold that evolution hasn't much altered humans in the past 10,000 years, but a new analysis of ancient DNA indicates that natural selection continued to shape hundreds of genes. The study published in the journal Nature. So if you want to go read more about it, check it out there. All right, those are your headlines. Now it's time to get to the clips that I've got for you. I like to start and end with comedy clips here on the Clip Show. I don't always, but I try. Here is comedian Sam Morril at the Comedy Cellar in New York City making quick material of Blobby Jones' dispute with the Pope.
You see Trump pop shit to the Pope today? He wrote, the Pope is weak on crime. He wrote weak in all caps to the hammer, you know. I didn't know it was the Pope's job to fight crime. Maybe that's what the Pope-mobile's for. I don't know. You know that Trump asked his team, like, can we bomb the Pope? And his team's like, it's a bad look to bomb the Pope. Except Pete Hegseth is like, we could bomb him.
Oh, I love Sam Morril. I can't believe he was an intern when I was working at the Colbert Report a billion years ago. Very, very funny guy. Love it. All right, let's get serious now. A CBS News reporter sat down with 3 of the victims of Eric Swalwell's and asked them about what justice looked like. And man, were their answers good.
The fact that he has now dropped out of the governor's race and resigned from Congress, is that justice in your view?
No, it's just the beginning. It's just the very beginning. And I know personally that we're not walking away from this fight.
For me, justice won't be until he can't ever harm a woman ever again, and he has faced the consequences for the women that he has harmed.
I think in regards to the governor's race, he never should have ran for governor to begin with, knowing the kind of history and receipts that are out there. So that's a non-starter. And then in terms of Congress, I think he absolutely should have resigned. I think we just prevented another 30 to 40 years potentially of him harming people if he were to stay in Congress.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think we have served justice for his future victims.
Wow.
That won't exist anymore.
Yeah, powerful stuff for sure. Now let's head over to Democracy Now!, where Amy Goodman had on Fatima Goss-Graves from the National Women's Law Center, organization I should probably be getting more guests from.
I think we're going to see a lot more investigating. And the survivors who have come forward to share their experience, they deserve far more than that. So you may see both criminal and civil investigations happening, and each of them will be responding to that. But Congress itself shouldn't see these resignations as the end of the story here. They actually should see it as the beginning of investigating not only what happened with these 2 individuals, but they need to understand whether or not they have a problem that is more of a pattern. If you were talking about any other employment setting and you saw 2 very powerful individuals with very serious allegations, you would wonder if you had a pattern. And so Congress, I think, has a problem of it only investigating itself. They probably need some sort of outside, independent, and transparent look into what exactly is happening. Whether staffers and interns and other people who engage regularly with Congress are experiencing harassment and violence, and whether or not their systems of reporting are working at all.
And then there are another 2 Congress members, both from Florida, calls in Congress for Republican Corey Mills and Democrat Sheila Cherfilis McCormick. Mills is facing a House ethics investigation into domestic violence and campaign finance violations.
So here's the thing. When I think about both Gonzalez and some of these other allegations, they've been out there for a long time. And it should not be that you have to wait for some sort of bipartisan infraction for Congress to do something about it, to either threaten expulsion, to take a very serious vote. When you have the level of information that the Ethics Committee has had, it seems like they should have been moving forward anyway. You know, when you talk about why this is happening, part of what is going on is you have a sense of entitlement and a sense that there won't be consequences no matter the conduct. And that comes from the highest levels. The tone that is being set right now about having no consequence, whether you're talking about the president for his own actions or other cabinet members, there needs to be a giant reset.
All right. Yes, indeed. A giant reset. Consequences. What does it all look like? Well, let's move on now to the war with some commentary from Josh Rogan, who's a foreign policy columnist. I think he was with the Washington Post. Here he is on CNN.
Trump would like the war to be over soon. He's clearly signaling he wants the war to be over soon. But the Iranians have a different strategy. Their strategy is to stretch this out as long as possible. Their strategy is to inflict as much pain on the U.S. and world economy as possible. And that's why Trump's strategy of blockading their blockade really doesn't make any sense when you think about it. They're going to blockade the Straits, or we're going to blockade the Strait to counter their blockade of the Strait. And it's a recipe for continued stalemate.
Stalemates seem bad for a lot of reasons, but especially for gas prices. Yesterday, the Treasury Secretary and man who seems not like a real person and more like a Muppet took some questions from reporters, including this tough stuff from Fox News' Peter Doocy about gas prices. This is important and upsetting, but maybe good if we could suck it up till the election, because it'll make all the Republicans lose.
Terry Besson, it doesn't sound like we're going to have $3 a gallon gas by summertime, which we had initially been told by the Energy Secretary. He now says that it would be very aggressive if we're going to get to the $3 a gallon gas by the summer. So when are we really going to get $3 a gallon gas?
Well, I think that's going to be up to how the negotiations go. President Trump said this morning that he thinks we're nearing the end. The U.S. kept their side on the ceasefire. We've stopped firing. The Straits of Hormuz have not been completely reopened, so we will see. And I'm optimistic that during the summer we will see gas with a 3 in front of it sooner rather than later. It's Bank Week here in D.C., so I've been meeting with a lot of my Middle Eastern counterparts, the finance ministers, and they all say that once the straits are open, they can start pumping again within 1 week.
So not by summer like Memorial Day, but maybe by Labor Day?
Again, I'm optimistic that sometime between June 20th and September 20th that we can have $3 gas again. And as I said this morning, too, we are going to be watching the gas stations because they raise prices very quickly when when the crude oil prices went up. We hope they'll bring them down just as quickly as crude oil prices have come down, which they've come down substantially just in the past 10 days.
Okay, well, we will see about gas prices. He was also asked about the scientific consensus around climate change, Scott Besson. And guess what?
Yes, the climate does change. As we all know, the natural habitat for the Earth is actually water. Ice was probably it's a very long cycle, but ice was an unusual cycle. And we are going through cycles, and I believe that it is very difficult to deconstruct the reasons around why anything changes.
Oh God, he did it. He did the whole thing. He went the full round of denial and just making shit up. Sounds like such a fucking idiot to anybody who understands basic science. But there you go. That's our current Treasury Secretary. Yikes. All right. Well, I thought, here's a bunch of other random clips now, but I thought that this was interesting. This is Volodymyr Zelensky being interviewed by the Kiev Post. I thought this was really powerful and important.
Do you hate Vladimir Putin?
Of course. I think we hate each other.
Mm-hmm. So Trump is right. These guys hate each other.
In this, yes, he is right. Not in everything.
But how can there be a peace deal? How can there be a peace deal at some point between two people who hate each other?
Nobody say that somebody will give each other friendship. no friendship. He's a killer. He tried to occupy us and kill so many people. And we answered to them, and he lost a lot of soldiers. So it's understandable, the attitude. But we need peace. The peace, it's not emotional thing. The hateness, it's about emotions. The peace is a very specific document which can give our people possibility to live and to stop the war. That's why this is the priority. It's not about personal attitude. It's not about personalities.
I thought that was he's so smart, such a smart guy. Even his handle on English, which isn't 100% perfect, but still getting the point across. I like that. All right, here's Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about how evil Orange Hitler is, or Shitler. Maybe we should call him. It's always fun. And she's on with Piers Morgan, and she is terrible, but she's talking about how much worse he is.
He's covering it up. He fought us the entire time. He did everything in his power to stop the Epstein files to be released. He even forced Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, to do everything he could do to stop it from being released. It was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. We were even shut down for 8 weeks. We had a government shutdown back in the fall of 2025 for 8 weeks. And I believe that was part of trying to prevent the Epstein files from coming out. The only time I reached out to him was via text message after I had resigned and he had been attacking me, and I was receiving it in just, I can't even count how many death threats. And but the death threats escalated on one of my children, and I had sent those death threats to the FBI director, Kash Patel. I sent them to the Vice President, J.D. Vance, Susie Wiles, James Blair, and I even texted the president. And I was so upset over death threats on my children because of him. And the quotes and the death threat were from what the president had been calling me a traitor. And I'm not a traitor to my country. Standing up for rape victims doesn't make me a traitor. And I reached out to the president and to let him know this is what's happening because what you're saying about me. And he was very unkind about these death threats. And so that was our last exchange.
What did he say to you?
He basically blamed me. He had no compassion for death threats on my children. He blamed me basically that if my son were to get killed, it would be my fault.
Oh, wow. Wow. That was something, huh? So bad. Just the worst man being talked about by one of the other worst people, Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's been a timeline or a storyline I didn't predict would play out, her turning on him. Okay, well, now it's time to get to a couple of senators who we heard from yesterday listing the corruption of this administration. Yesterday there was this anti-corruption Senate hearing led by, of course, Republicans, but it was under the guise of the Minnesota fraud. But Democrats get to speak and get to call witnesses too. And, of course, they brought up, I don't know why I say of course, but one of the most premier anti-corruption, anti-government corruption organizations, Public Citizen, who I've known and loved a long time. This guy you'll hear, Robert Weissman, has been on the show before. Probably should get him back. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and Senator Mazie Hirono. I've got clips from both of them just kind of listing off the corruption and fraud and questioning Robert Weissman, who's great. Here it is, starting with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse.
In democracy, is there a significant difference between private individuals engaging in fraud and self-dealing against the government and government officials, public officials, engaging in fraud and self-dealing against the government?
They are both wrong, concerning, problematic, but the betrayal by public officials is morally and from a political point of view more consequential.
Yeah, it's a worse element, isn't it? So the chairman has pointed out that President Trump did not run a fake daycare. What are the 4 or 5 things that Trump did that used his position to enrich himself and his family at the expense of the American taxpayer?
Well, I've detailed this in my testimony. Most shockingly is the report from the Wall Street Journal this past weekend about a Trump-connected business partnering with UAE in a deal that directly put $187 million in the pockets of the president and his family. He additionally has joint ventures or elaborate licensing deals with Saudi companies, companies from Qatar. He's engaged in this elaborate cryptocurrency arrangements that have made him at least $2 billion by independent estimates, and maybe even more just in the course of the last year.
And let's look for a moment at the pardon process, which used to be operated under the supervision and scrutiny of the Department of Justice and now appears to have moved to the lounge at Mar-a-Lago. It seems that there is a pay-to-play arrangement by which people can acquire pardons. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, we've seen the president use his pardon power aggressively, and I don't begrudge him for doing that whatsoever. But what is shocking is that, leaving aside the January 6 pardons, they've been so heavily focused on those who've committed white-collar crimes, and particularly fraud.
Fraud crimes.
People who have committed those crimes, shown no remorse for those crimes, owed restitution for those crimes, or excused for restitution for those crimes, and who appear to be getting off because of their connection to the president, because they've hired high-priced lobbyists to get them there, or have made, or they or their families have made contributions to the president's political committees or those that benefit him directly.
Do you think that fits into what the public generally understands to be pay to play?
Yes, sir.
Love the succinct answer there, Weissman. Good stuff from Sheldon Whitehouse. Now let's head to Senator Mazie Hirono, who had a good list of her own, or a bad list.
I would say that that includes corruption, political corruption. So I want to talk about political corruption in this regime. There are so many examples of political corruption in this administration, in this regime. And the thing is that what is astounding to me is that this corruption, which is fraudulent, costs people money, is so overt. And I know that at least Mr. Weissman has talked about some of this corruption, but let me just repeat some of this because I think it's important for our American people to know what is overtly happening in our country that constitutes political corruption and, in my view, fraud. For example, President Trump accepted a $400 million jet from Qatar that he plans to keep. He plans to keep after his time in office. What is that? Overt. Members of Trump's team, including Kash Patel and Kristi Noem, use taxpayer-funded private jets for personal travel, to visit with girlfriends, to go to golf courses. Overt. Tech billionaires have received special access to the White House in exchange for paying for the president's new ballroom in the East Wing. And as noted, a lot of these tech billionaires want something from the White House. That's why they're doing this. I'd say, it's practically extortion, if not extortion, for this kind of overt kind of corruption to be happening. And then Trump's family has made at least $5 billion from the same cryptocurrency market that Trump's administration refuses to regulate. And in case anyone needs a reminder, the president himself was convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. That is called fraud.
That is fraud and corruption, and it needs to be defined. And I love that. And I wish everybody was watching those hearings, but they weren't because of, everything else that you can watch, I guess. Okay, well, here's another senator. You could have watched this because this is on MS Now with Jen Psaki. It's Raphael Warnock, who is, of course, a man of God, a preacher himself, the senator, one of the two senators from Georgia, and Jen Psaki put him through watching J.D. Vance talk about theology and then let him lay the smackdown.
My job is to apply moral truth to try to do the best thing for the American people. That's my job. And that's the President of the United States' job. And of course, he's the person who leads our administration. The Pope's job is to preach the gospel. We can, of course, have disagreements about whether this or that conflict is just, but I think that it's important, in the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy. I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology. If you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth. And that's one of the things that I try to do. And it's certainly something I would expect from the clergy, whether they're Catholic or Protestant.
To me, it's saying if you align with us and you're in the clergy, then you're right and you're speaking for God. And if you don't, then you're not. How did you hear what he said?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is how despots and wannabe despots talk. This is how fascists talk. They tell the people who are faith leaders to stay in your lane. You know, there were a lot of religious leaders during Hitler's Third Reich, and I'm not, conflating our point, our day to that day, but I think the historical lessons are important. And most of the Christian church capitulated to Hitler. In fact, they became Reich Christians. They decided that the appropriate place for the church was in matters of personal piety and individualistic morality, and not to address these systemic injustices. Meanwhile, we were literally witnessing a human holocaust in their watch. And so I'm not about to sit silently while we see Donald Trump unleash cruelty on American streets, unmasked men or masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, creating terror and destruction here on our streets.
Yeah, well said, Senator Warnock. Now let's head to New York, where the new mayor continues to cut out ads and post them on social media. This is a good one where he announced that he's taxing the rich. He leans into the camera and just taps it with his finger. You hear that. You got to watch this. They've got the music or similar music to the show Succession, I think it is, under it. And it's just a great ad where he explains how he's getting some money from the wealthiest people who use New York for a kind of a tax sanctuary and a second home, or a pied-à-terre, as it's called.
And for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others. Happy Tax Day, New York.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. I like it a lot, and I think everybody else does too. And then there was James Tallarico, who also pounced on the fact that yesterday was tax day, and he put out this ad for his Senate campaign with annoying music, but still good stuff.
Today is tax day, and this year nearly every American will pay more in taxes except for billionaires. For 50 years, billionaires have bankrolled political campaigns. Then their puppet politicians turn around and rewrite the tax code to favor those rich donors, and it worked. Just look at business tax write-offs, a rule originally meant to help small business owners cover basic costs like office space or travel. But billionaires take advantage of these write-offs in ways the rest of us can't. Oil heiress Phyllis Taylor wrote off her own company's oil spill and paid zero federal income taxes on $444 million. Campbell Soup heiress Charlotte Weber wrote off Kentucky Derby racehorses and used the losses to drive down federal tax bills. Elon Musk's $78 million private jet, he can write that off. Jeff Bezos's $500 million mega yacht, he can write that off too. This is why billionaires buy politicians, to rewrite the rules and rig the system for themselves. Every tax dollar a billionaire writes off on their yacht is a tax dollar that has to come from you. It doesn't have to be this way. We can limit the influence of billionaires in our politics and make them pay their fair share, so we can start cutting our taxes. If we get money out of our politics, we can put money in our pockets. So next year on tax day, you can pay less than a billionaire.
Yeah. And speaking of anti-rich stuff, there yesterday was this spotlight hearing. It's not an official Senate judiciary hearing, but it was held by Democrats, and they invited a whole bunch of experts to come up and talk about why there should be no merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers. And there's all kinds of activism to prevent this merger because of everything that it could mean. But yesterday they had a whole bunch of folks testifying, and I thought I would share a little bit from lawyer, legal expert Katie Fang's testimony yesterday. There were plenty of others there, but I thought this was just want to share a clip from it.
Today about the impending merger between Paramount Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery and the threat this mega transaction poses to American democracy. My name is Katie Fang. I'm a trial lawyer, an independent journalist, and a media commentator with extensive experience covering the intersection of law, media, politics, and democratic accountability. I'm here today not as a partisan advocate, but as someone who spent her career both inside the courtrooms and inside the newsrooms, and as someone who understands what this kind of consolidation does to journalism and to the public's ability to hold power to account. This proposed merger is one of the most consequential media consolidations in decades. This hearing must examine it closely because the stakes extend far beyond shareholder returns and content libraries. This merger will reshape the information landscape that hundreds of millions of Americans depend upon to understand their world, their government, and their rights for generations to come. I am privileged to appear before you today as a senior advisor for Democracy Defenders Action. I am free to speak my mind without worrying that the federal government and its corporate oligarch allies will threaten my livelihood should I report critically on their activities. I'm also acutely aware of how many of my former colleagues in mainstream media do not share the freedom to express their honest assessments about this administration and the behavior of convicted felon Donald Trump. When a handful of billionaires and giant corporations control what Americans watch, hear, read, and ultimately discuss, when they exert undue influence on where those discussions are steered, that is when freedom of speech becomes something closer to a branding exercise than a constitutional guarantee. That is the danger of media consolidation. Our founding fathers did not put freedom of the press in the First Amendment because they thought journalism would be profitable. They didn't enshrine the right to freedom of speech because they assumed everybody would be polite, rational, or even truthful. They did it because they understood something essential and sacrosanct. Democracy cannot survive if powerful people get to decide which facts are allowed to exist and what version of the truth they want to peddle for profits. I have worked for years in legacy media as a legal correspondent, legal analyst, and as an anchor and host at then MSNBC. I've witnessed the chilling effects that consolidation exerts on editorial independence. When executives fear that aggressive reporting might antagonize a parent company's business partners, stories disappear or are rewritten to soften the edges. When newsrooms shrink under cost-cutting mandates driven by corporate restructurings,
bad things happen. The worst thing. Sorry to cut her off there. That's all I got from that clip, but I thought it was good. And I read more about the fight to block the merger. And I think it's really important. I think we should talk a lot more about it and learn a lot more about it as well. All right. That's all I've got for you except the final comedy clip from Jimmy Kimmel Live last night.
Meanwhile, our Darth Vader president is lashing out at the Pope again. This is how he operates. He does something dumb. Everyone around him tries to clean it up for him, and then he just does it again. He's mad at the Pope for being against war and lashed out last night just before midnight, which is not helping his I'm not the Antichrist campaign. And then this morning, you know that image Trump posted of himself as Jesus and claimed it was a doctor? Well, this time he posted another one. It was not him as Jesus, but with Jesus. He posted this image of Jesus quietly begging him to stop. You know, I don't know if you know this, but he thinks artists make these. He thinks they're paintings. For real. He doesn't realize this is an AI thing. And check out the chin and cheekbones on it. Somebody's been looks-maxing. Here's another one. Trump didn't post this, but I'm sure he will get to it. This one shows Jesus looking over Trump's shoulders as he reads the Epstein files. He's like, you're going to hell for this, and this, and this. You know, it's been a long time since God smited someone. We're now on day 3 of Hormuzapalooza. We still can't seem to get a straight answer on what's going on over there. Trump says the strait is closed, but he also says it's open. It's whatever you want it to be. Gas prices are sky high, but our Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, is confident that whatever the president is doing is good, even if it isn't.
God bless President Trump's agenda and willingness to pivot. Just because it looks like we're going the wrong direction does not mean that's the direction we're going.
This is why his wife won't drive with him. Trump is desperate to change the narrative right now and sat for a doozy of an interview with Maria Bartiromo, who, like everyone, is curious as to when this war might be over.
I had to divert, because if I didn't do that, right now you would have Iran with a nuclear weapon. And if they had a nuclear weapon, you would be calling everybody over there, sir. And you don't want to do that.
Well, you keep saying was. Is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over.
Honestly, Maria, I have no idea what's happening or what I'm doing. I said COVID was over 2 years before it was over. Did you know that before they made me president, I hosted a reality TV show?
Did you see that Britain suffered the biggest growth forecast downgrade in the G7?
Yeah, well.
So their economy is impacted.
It's the UK. I would say this. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to open up the North Sea.
They got to stop with the windmills. You have to stop with the windmills. What is with him and the windmills? Every problem comes back to windmills. Every day I become more convinced that Trump's father used to beat him with a miniature golf club in the shadow of a windmill.
All right, there he goes. Jimmy Kimmel, that's the clip show, a fat one for you, your headlines, and I hope to see you at tonight's Hangout at 8 p.m. if you're a subscriber. If not, sign up now to support my work and so that I can do this each and every day. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Okay, now it's time to get to my guest, David Rothkopf. You can hear him every day on the Deep State Radio Network. They do a great recap of the news most days, and also, of course, you can hear a whole bunch of other great shows produced by David and his team over there. You should get all of his books. You should read him at the Daily Beast, where he's been publishing a lot, and especially you can support him on Substack as well at Need to Know or davidrothkopf.substack.com. We caught up yesterday. We were live on YouTube and my Substack. You can watch it there. You can also watch him on YouTube. I think that's it for the intro. You know him, you love him. Let's get Rothkopf. Okay, David Rothkopf is very busy, and I'm glad I got some time with him. If it's not the Daily Beast or his Substack or any number of other programs, we get a shot at him, and always great to talk with you. And I was listening to the Daily Deep State Radio Network today. I learned a lot. You seemed very upbeat.
You mean because it was not, the world is ending tomorrow, but rather, you know, maybe this war will be over. Maybe we'll see, you know, not only Orban lose, but we'll see Netanyahu lose. We'll see the Republicans lose. This will be a good year.
Yeah.
Or that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, you know, why not?
There was some.
Let's have a moment. Let's have a glimmer.
Well, let's get to this quickly, your analysis. Not quickly, I want to talk a lot about it, but about Iran. I mean, there's a blockade attempt, which nobody really understands that strategy. Also, they're sending more troops. I guess that's negotiating. Iran doesn't seem to be backing down. And, the president's basically saying, like COVID, the gas prices are just going to return to normal. It's all going to go away. It's just going to be gone. One day you wake up and it's gone. So there's a lot to happening, I feel like, that looks like it could escalate, not de-escalate.
Well, one day will wake up and he'll be gone.
Well, that's
what a day.
A message.
What a day. That's it's something we can all cling to. Look, my view is I think he's just run out of moves. This was a stupid idea. It didn't work out. So he thought he would double down. He bombed some more things. He threatened some more things. Didn't work out. Iran didn't go away. The regime didn't disappear. It got harder. The uranium is still there. It's almost impossible to get it out without huge costs. The Iranians still have missiles and drones. They still have regional proxies. None of the things that he said he thought he would achieve, he can achieve. So what does he do? Well, he says, okay, I'm going to destroy the whole civilization. That produces massive backlash because it's the kind of thing a genocidal maniac would say. And so then in response or in following up to the massive backlash, he then says, okay, we're going to have a ceasefire. He makes up some bullshit that the Pakistanis have had a breakthrough and so forth. But it was just face saving, so he didn't have to follow through on the threat. So then he sends over this team of these midgets. We don't use that kind of word. He sends over this team of the three stooges to go and negotiate with a full Iranian team of 60 people. And, he says, here are my ultimatum. And, well, the reality is the Iranians were never going to accept that. Trump's wrong. They have a lot of cards. We don't have the cards. Or as Saturday Night Live joked, Trump says they don't have all the or any good cards, and they have the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
Get the joke?
Yes.
And so he goes, okay, we're going to take our toys and go home. We're done with these negotiations. And we're going to do something really tough now. We're going to do a double secret blockade of their blockade. And as the Wall Street Journal pointed out, nobody likes that. The Saudis don't like it. None of the regional countries that are our friends like it. The Europeans don't like it. The rest of the world doesn't like it. The Chinese actually have their defense minister get in front of a microphone and go, try us, buddy.
Right. That's
and so all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's a problem. We don't want to start World War III. So the blockade of the blockade doesn't work. And now, Trump, he's like, oh, couldn't I go home, sit by the pool, have a nice time, judge a beauty contest, do something? And the answer is not unless this is over.
Well,
so now he's going to come up with a reason. It'll be over, and we're going to end up with, in the next few days or a week or something, the U.S. going, we've had a breakthrough, and there's a great deal, and it's a triumph for us all. Except the deal will put us in a worse position than we were on February 27th. Right. It'll be worse than the JCPOA, the deal that Obama struck in 2015. Iran, although obliterated, and then we obliterated their obliteration. That they'll have more leverage than they've had in a long, long time, and he'll say, okay, let's invade Cuba, or let's take Greenland.
But it won't be. Right, he'll move on to the next thing, but it would seem that the Iranians and the region won't be able to move on quite as easy, and that they do have a lot of leverage over any number of things, including obviously moving oil through that strait, and whether or not they want to let everyone through or some people through. You mentioned that he just wants to go off and sit by the pool. I mean, He did do that. He's been golfing. He went to UFC. One quick question is, why didn't Secretary of State Marco Rubio, arguably the smartest of his representatives, arguably the most appropriate person to be in such negotiations, why wasn't he there? It was Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and J.D. Vance?
Well, we can only speculate, right? Is Vance favored? I don't know. I don't know if Vance going was such a great thing for Vance, right? Because, he had one of the worst weeks ever, yes. Right? He goes to Hungary and says, here's my friend Viktor Orban. And Orban's polls go down and then he loses. And so then he says, okay, well, I'm going to go solve this war. And he goes there and it doesn't work. And on top of that, he gets into a pissing match with the Pope.
And he killed the last Pope just by visiting him.
He killed the last Pope. Then he decides he's going to write a book saying, I've been Catholic 3 years. I love being Catholic. Everything that matters to me in the world is my being Catholic. It's my faith. It's fantastic. Oh, yeah, I don't like the Pope. I don't agree with the Pope. And as of yesterday, he lectures the Pope that the Pope really ought to know as much as he does about theology. And it's like, J.D. Vance is not just a man who's had his personality surgically removed. He's not just somebody who, doesn't have, one appealing characteristic. He's also, an arrogant asshole of the first order.
Yeah.
And he is now, like Pete Hegseth, another arrogant asshole, in a fight with a man who runs a church of 1 billion people, who is also, as it happens, a beloved Chicago White Sox fan, and happens to be on the right side of the arguments. So Vance had a bad week. And, Trump just doesn't have any moves left. And so I know we'll go through a lot of drama between now and then. But I will tell you, I just did a podcast for our listeners at the DSR Network. Go listen to it on YouTube or go listen to it wherever you get podcasts. But the conclusion that we drew, everybody on the podcast, including Tom Nichols, Rosa Brooks, Ed Luce, and myself, was this is going to be over. Trump's going to try to declare victory, turn the page, move on to the next thing, because he just doesn't, there's no rabbits left in his hat. He's old. He's over. Trump is over. And MAGA is over. And this year we're going to see Orban lose and Netanyahu lose, and we're going to see the Republicans lose the House, and they probably will lose the Senate. And I don't take it for granted. Go out, vote, do what you got to do. But I just think, Donald Trump is sitting there right now. Right now, Donald Trump is going, gee, I wish I were at home. I wish I didn't have to do this. Couldn't I just watch TV? I really like that UFC stuff. I could have watched another fight someplace. I could have hung out with Guy Fieri at the fight.
Yeah, I heard your riff on him on your show, and I love it. I'm there for all of it. J.D. Vance had his worst week ever. Let's Celebrate is the piece you've got recently at the Daily Beast. Also, you've got a piece at your Substack, davidrothkopf.substack.com. If people aren't subscribed to that, then I think their family pet is probably in danger, is all I can say.
I'm not coming for their pet. I love pets, but people should subscribe to my Substack. They should go to the DSR Network. They should subscribe to the Daily Beast, where I do a podcast every week there too.
You say that MAGA is over. You want to put a little bit of data or arguments behind what you mean by that?
Well, sure. Trump's old and going to die. That's part of it. Another part of it is every poll shows that they are doing terribly. All their ratings on the economy, their ratings on the war, their ratings on, all the things that were their big winning issues are down in the 30s, possible exception, immigration. I think that was 41 on the last NBC News poll. So they're in bad shape. The Cook political report and all the smart guys who do all the bean counting about who's going to win in the fall have, enough swing elections going to the Dems that they'll almost certainly win the House unless Republicans cheat in some egregious way. They might even win the Senate as things are going in, Maine and in Ohio and in North Carolina and Georgia, where the Dems look, like they're doing pretty well. The MAGA base is angry. They didn't like the war. They don't like him going around and saying he's Jesus and running pictures of himself as Jesus. That bugged some of them. Epstein's not going away, and so that's continuing to haunt him despite Melania's really weird appearance before the cameras last week to say, I had nothing to do with it.
And most importantly, gas.
The price of gas, the price of fertilizer, the price of food, the price of everything. And every day, more and more people, thanks to the horrible legislation they passed last year, the one big piece of legislation they passed, are getting kicked off of healthcare. They're losing their healthcare. Millions and millions are losing their VA coverage. And Trump now, his big new plan is let's spend $1.5 trillion on defense. Let's get that money by kicking more people off of healthcare, shutting down more social services. It's just, they don't have a move. I keep saying that over and over again. What are they going to do?
Say more about the Jesus, him as Jesus. Say more. Can we talk about it for the rest of the time?
Look, I'm Jewish, right? I know. Oh, we may have discussed that in the past.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure it makes you uncomfortable. But look, I'm going to own it. I'm Jewish. I'm from New Jersey. I don't know anything about this stuff, except Jew. Yeah, he's a big Jew. I do a podcast every week with Norm Ornstein, and one of our enthusiastic subscribers did a social media post a couple of days going, "Oh, I missed the podcast. David and Norm are my two favorite Jews." And I was like,
it must have been my father.
It was like, okay. But here's the thing. Even based on my limited knowledge of Jesus and things about Jesus, Donald Trump is the least Jesus-y guy on the planet, right? Yeah. Like everything Jesus is for, being, embracing the stranger, turning the other cheek, the golden rule, kindness, charity,
forgiveness, apologizing,
forgiveness, all those things. Trump is against that. He's also, in the course of the past, 3 weeks of holy season, end of Ramadan, Passover, Easter, Orthodox Easter, he's taken on all the Muslims, made fun of them in a tweet, saying that, praise be to Allah, so he's mocking them. And he is the guy who actually tried to ban them all from the United States in his last term. So he went after the Muslims, there are a billion of them. Then he goes after the Catholics, there are a billion of them. And then he also said to us Jews, he said, any Jew who doesn't vote for me is an idiot.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Thanks for that. Yes. I'm sure if you're like, Hindi or you're, Taoist or something, you're like, well, when's he coming for us? But the point is, this guy hates religion. He hates Jesus. He doesn't know anything about the Bible. I keep waiting for somebody to say, right? Remember back like a couple of years ago, somebody said, well, what's your favorite Bible verse?
Still my favorite clip.
And he's like, well, I kind of like the whole Bible.
I like, they're like Old Testament or New Testament. He's like, I think there's, there are good things in both, I think.
They're both good. I mean, he's not even a good bullshit artist.
No.
And the reality is his brain is turning to oatmeal.
Yeah.
Before our eyes. He's less good at coming up with good lines.
Yeah.
And he is swinging to crazy extremes all the time. I just, I think one of the patterns that we don't talk about here is every day he does something. He he can't control himself. In the past, he would try to present things like now he's like, well, this is bullshit. And it's like, what? The president's saying this is bullshit. Or we're going to bomb them. Or I don't like the Pope. Or the Pope is weak on crime. Or whatever. And each one of these things make headlines. But what doesn't make headlines, but what is the most important thing, is just he is growing more erratic every day. He can't control his emotions. He can't maintain a thought in his head for more than 10 seconds. He swings from this to that to the other thing. The guy's losing his marbles. If he were your Uncle Don, you'd be like, Uncle Don, hand me the car keys. Okay? Just sit right here, eat your TV dinner. The nice people from the farm are going to come, and they're going to take you so you can have a nice room with a view, 3 meals a day, and we'll visit you every other Sunday. We promise, Uncle Don. That's what you would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see him with the DoorDash lady? That was the weirdest, cringiest. And he's like, what do you think about women playing men sports, men playing women's sports? She's like, I just wanted to deliver your food. And then he said, you got $11,000, and she only got $3,000 apparently, and she didn't get it. She just have to pay it in taxes. And most importantly, he said, well, that's going to go a long way for your husband's cancer care. And she's like, yeah, about an hour and a half. That was this week's weirdest.
Well, but it's also, it's like, this is healthcare in America.
Right.
The way we deal with healthcare is when you're old, if your husband gets cancer, you've got to drive fucking DoorDash delivering McDonald's around. And the way the government is going to make it easier for you is to allow you to keep more of your fucking tips. That's it. In every other country in the world, if somebody gets cancer, you know what they do? They treat them. Sometimes they cure them. And you know what they charge? Nothing.
America's healthcare plan is Uber Eats.
America's healthcare plan is a deep, dark hole in the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so hideous.
You also said, you wrote a piece over at the Daily Beast, how Trump just proved he is history's most powerful idiot. You just made the case that he should be put in a home, and I get it, but the bottom line is he's still starting wars and ordering the American military to invade a number of countries and threatening entire civilizations, apparently. Make the case a little bit more on that.
Well, look, there have been a lot of idiots. I mean, the history of the world is the history of idiots. There have been billions of idiots in the history of the planet Earth. Let's acknowledge that. There have even been powerful idiots. I mean, George W. Bush was president of the United States, and he invaded Iraq. And, we can all think of powerful idiots we've known, worked with, or been, okay? But there has never been a powerful person so idiotic or an idiot so powerful as Donald Trump. Right. He can end the world. Literally, there's nothing we can, if he decides he wants to end the world with the push of a button, 4 minutes after he has that impulse, missiles leave silos, because that's the way the law is written, and it's almost impossible for somebody to stop it. He can launch wars. He has the most powerful military in the world working for him. He can fuck up the global economy. He's got, Peter Navarro, who has the intellectual acumen of a Chihuahua that sustained a series of head injuries.
That's not fair.
Pardon me?
Not fair to the Chihuahua, but continue.
Possibly. Yeah, okay. But that Chihuahua probably has a better grasp of international economic policy than Peter Navarro, who said, hey, yeah, sure. Why not launch tariffs against everybody? Ultimately, that'll help make our prices go down. Well, of course, it won't. It does the opposite. The foreign governments don't pay the tariffs. We pay the tariffs. He's screwed up the global economy on that. He's screwed up healthcare. There's 300 years of science that say use vaccines or wash your hands or, whatever. Don't, drink snake toxin. And you've got, RFK Jr. going to do those things. He's for that. So it's not just that Donald Trump is dumber than he ought to be president, or more powerful than a dumb person ought to be. It's that he takes the cake in both of these things, and we're living with the consequences. He's got an Environmental Protection Agency that doesn't believe in climate change,
right,
and is trying to destroy the climate.
That's right.
He had his Treasury Secretary today, the smarmiest man in the history of the world, Scott Bessent, say, well, what does it matter if the ice caps melt? The world is mostly water anyway.
Yeah, it was real embarrassing, real bad, real dangerous. And the only guy smarmier is a guy who's on Capitol Hill today. Maybe he's up there for the Smarm Award is Russ Vought.
Oh, what an ass. What an ass. And when he's posed the question in the hearings today, so you've taken healthcare away from 15 million people. His president says that's because, they've all committed fraud. Is that your position? They've all committed fraud.
Or they're undocumented.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. This guy is evil. Vought is evil.
Yeah.
And so, that's where we are. Literally this whole administration is going to be featured in an upcoming history book called How Not to Run a Country.
What do you make of, I haven't seen you spouting off anywhere about this Swalwell scandal. It feels to me one positive conclusion, of course, is that when Democrats, whether they're elected or you're a candidate, smell or hear legitimate corroborations from one or several women often, we dump them. In most polite society, certainly public society, that's the deal here. He was gone within like a week of these allegations being corroborated and surfaced. What are your thoughts around that? And then, of course, what does this mean for the California gubernatorial race? Because I saw you doing a talk about that, I think.
Well, first of all, let's be clear. What Swalwell did, what is alleged he did by a number of people and has been corroborated in a variety of ways, is disgusting. And his behavior is indefensible. And the fact that he thought he could get away with it is disgusting.
Yeah.
And the fact that apparently, he was sleazebag for a long time, and it was a kind of commonly known aspect of his character, and yet he became the leading candidate to be governor of California, the head of the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
And there's something wrong with the leadership of the Democratic Party that they let that happen. There's something wrong with him. There's something wrong with their culture on Capitol Hill. And so let's acknowledge those things. But, he resigned in a deal where this guy, Tony Gonzalez, this Republican who, sexually abused a woman who later went on to kill herself, also resigned. There's no equivalency there. The Republicans wanted to let him keep his job.
Yeah.
The Republicans weren't going to let this happen until Swalwell could leave so that they could do a one-for-one swap, because for them, all it is about power.
Right.
And every one of the Republicans, these idiots who get on TV, they're like, well, Swalwell should be hanged. Rapists should be hanged. And, then you turn, go to the internet where they're showing these things and, everybody's like, well, who's going to tell him? Because, of course, Trump is a serial sex abuser who has been found liable in civil court of having committed rape. He has been accused credibly of rape by a 13-year-old. He has been on TV saying, I can do something which amounts to sex abuse. I grab women by the pussy. And he's the president of the United States, the leader of their party, the moral beacon of republicanism, is a serial criminal, fraudster, sex abuser, rapist, creep, alleged rapist. And although one judge said it was the equivalent of rape. So, you figure it out for yourself. These parties are not the same. There are bad people in both parties. But one party deals with that as you're supposed to, and the other elevates the bad people.
Right. Perfectly said. That's exactly how it is and needs to be acknowledged. All right. Well, listen, there's a lot more I wanted to ask you about, but I'm going to let you go. You're a very busy man. I hope everybody goes.
You say that like you don't believe I'm really a busy man.
No, actually, certain people you can see are busy, and I see how much you output, how much content you create, whether it be the Daily Beast or Deep State Radio Network or any other number of outlets. You're out there working, and then I also know that you watch a film every day.
Every night.
You walk your dog. You are just infatuated with your beloved bride. So, I mean, I feel like in your personal and professional life, you're pretty full. I hope that you feel like you're enough. That's my wish for you.
Well, it's very nice. I just try to keep up with you and what you're doing. I mean, I saw you're like doing some show in Las Vegas.
Yeah, people were your name came up a lot. There was a thing. This is real. There was a thing on the website promoting our subscriber event in Las Vegas called PodJam 3, and it said, if you're a subscriber and you really want a certain guest, we can try to negotiate, to get them out. And that's actually how we got Waj come. But the same guy who brought Waj said either Waj or David Rothkopf. And I legitimately said, I don't think Rothkopf would come to Vegas. I don't think he'd come out here. But if you want to, we'll make it happen next week. I don't think he travels. I don't think he gets out of bed for less than a dime. I don't see it.
Well, you're very nice to lie that way. But what I was getting at was not seeking an invitation to the
I know, but I thought
you can eat all night betting craziness of you and all the Pete Dominic fans in Las Vegas.
We had
the town apart.
We had a really great time. It's a wonderful community, obviously, but J.L. Cavan was there and he was doing his Trump in uniform. And first he and Waj were on panel on my show, and they were hilarious together. They didn't know each other. And then so JL goes up. He's the best Trump impersonator, a very funny comedian and commentator, one of my favorites. He's in Trump's outfit, whatever. And Waj suggested that he be the FBI director. So Trump brought up Kash Patel, and Waj runs on the stage and starts jumping up and down, and it was did a shitty but hilarious impression of Kash Patel. It was very funny and I think racist, but still funny.
Well, it sounds like a good time was had by all, and I think I admire that you have the wherewithal and the ability to go and do those things.
I love it.
Barely keep up with doing a few podcasts and columns a week.
I love the people. I'm a man of the people.
Well, they love you. They are dedicated to you. Every time I go on your show, I see all the comments, and they are loyal followers. If you went and bought a little land in Guyana and had a big tent, offered them all Kool-Aid, I bet they'd drink.
It's funny you say that because I'm moving back into my house and I might be hosting men's retreats. So we'll see. I'm very close to that. Very close to that.
Men's, is that a euphemism for something?
No, but all these women are hosting these, like my friend Jill Filipovich, not my friend, but a writer I admire. She's a writer. She does like writer and yoga retreats, and women, they join her in Bali, whatever. I'm like, and men need a place to go and connect, and they're all so lonely, and I have so many friends. I've got friends everywhere. So come on over to my house. I'm going to build a bocce ball court. We're going to have a good time. Yeah, we're going to play bocce. No better way for men to connect than over bocce. You don't need to make eye contact. It's a little bit of a game. You don't have to be a super athlete.
Yeah, or the French version, pétanque.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that. I thought
that's French bocce, pétanque.
Oh, I'm surprised.
My wife once said, we once drove by like a pétanque court in the south of France, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I competed on that on French national."
Oh my God, I saw you as more of a croquet guy.
And me? No, I played croquet though. I mean, it's not that I haven't played croquet, but I'm a tennis guy. I play tennis 3 or 4 times.
You have strong opinions against pickleball?
I hate pickleball.
Yeah, I thought
Pickleball is like large type tennis.
Why do you? Okay, but why do you hate it?
Because it's for olds.
Yeah.
And they like sit there and they go doink, doink. And the fucking ball is made of plastic. So it goes doink, doink, doink. And it's super annoying. And if you're playing tennis and there's somebody playing pickleball nearby and they're like going doink,
yeah,
doink, doink,
yeah,
and they don't like run, they don't do anything.
Right.
It's I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's people who can do a spin of a sideways, whatever. It just to me, it's silly.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure. Like, what is the demographic of the average Stand Up with Pete listener?
My age or older. A lot of black folks, but mostly white. Not a Hispanic amongst my listening audience, or an Asian, unfortunately. If I'm wrong, please show yourselves. I'd really like to try to do more programming and get it right. But yeah, that's about it. 40 and up.
That's, by the way, I think you've just described the demographics of every political podcast.
Right. Yeah.
Because I go on these podcasts and I'm like, well, but tell me about your demographics.
Yeah.
Because I always think they'll be better than ours.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
It's interesting. Yeah. I think there's a lot of the same. Yeah.
It's the same. It's like there's a couple 100,000 old people at home listening to podcasts. You know, I just beg you, folks. We love you. You support what we're doing. It's fantastic. Go out. Stop listening to this stuff.
They're driving.
Life.
They're driving
Take a
somewhere.
Walk. What?
Oh, sorry, Ronnie.
Go to Pete's house. Go to Pete's house.
In the chat, Ronnie, who's I've become good friends with, says, no Hispanics. What the fuck? Sorry, Ronnie Gonzalez. I apologize, buddy. You're right. There's Ronnie.
That's.
I'm working.
By the way, your demographics, though, I just want to put two and two together, so that you think of maybe what you do next year as your retreat is absolutely identical to the demographics of pickleball.
So we might play pickleball as well. I mean, there might be some pickleball. I don't have the aversions to it that you do. But I'm also not the elitist that you are. So
I'm not. No, that's true, and I'm perfectly happy to be accused of being an elitist because that's what everybody accuses people from New Jersey of being.
Please, sir, you've written 11 books. Accepted. I was walking through my garage where I have my oldest books, and one of your oldest books.
I was walking through my garage where I pile up all the books I don't read.
Let me find which one this was. You've written, here it is, Power Inc.
Yeah.
Power Inc., the epic rivalry between big business and government. I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge. And I mean, I think it makes some people have a lot of books. You've written more books than most people have. I may think that makes you elite. And I don't think that's an insult, except the way I just used it earlier.
Except the kind of backhand way you used it. Yeah, no. I'm happy to. But the reason I don't like pickleball is not paddleball. By the way, is a little more interesting, but still paddle as they call it. Paddle, P-A-D-E-L. But if you play tennis, it's like golf. I don't approve of golf either. I play tennis.
Now you're speaking.
I think a sport involves running around and exerting yourself.
The primary reason I don't like golf is the amount of land and energy resources it takes, water and land. You care about so much. So much more than you and others, yeah. But then I do eat animals, so maybe not. All right. Well, sir, what an honor.
You're like the girl. You're like the girl in Mean Girls.
A little.
When they're like, and she jumps, and so she says, "Sometimes I feel I just have too many feelings." And she jumps into the crowd. That's you.
I'll take that. I think that was a compliment for me, at least. That's how I see it.
Yeah. No, it is. No, you are. You have a lot of feelings. And all of us are here because we love you and your feelings.
You're very on point, as always, which is why we love that you were here to name exactly what we are doing. Thank you, sir, for seeing me. I feel seen as always, and I appreciate you as always, and I look forward to whatever you're going to say or do next, especially if it's with me.
Otherwise, it goes in the garage. Yes, I look forward.
I have a garage full of your books.
Like all the other shit. I look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
All right, there you go. Go support him on Substack, on the Daily Beast, and, of course, the Deep State Radio Network. Always a great time. You can watch that And like and subscribe over at YouTube and Substack, where you can get a paid subscription for my work, or, of course, at patreon.com/Pete Dominic. One more time, hope to see you tonight at 8 p.m. We'll recap Pod Jam 3 and talk about all of the things that matter and have lots of laughs and tangents in between. We are often there for almost 2-3 hours sometimes. So there you go, patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Can't do the show without John Carroll's music, johncarroll.org. Writes and performs all the music for us. Go stream his new album, see him live, and be the change you want to see in the world. Talk to you tomorrow. Good tonight.
Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep things right. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up. People got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Stand up.